Sophie's reflection in the cafe window revealed how nervous she truly was. She tugged at her red scarf, her fingers trembling slightly. Blind dates were not her thing, but her best friend Clara had insisted this one would be different. "He's humble, down to earth, exactly what you need," Clara had said. Still, Sophie couldn't help glancing toward the cafe door every few seconds, her mind racing with doubts. Then the bell chimed, and a tall man entered. His dark hair was tousled from the cold wind, his clothes simple: jeans, a worn jacket, boots that had seen better days. Not what Sophie had expected. But when he smiled, something inside her eased. "Sophie?" he asked, his voice calm, with a trace of shyness. She nodded, smiling back. "You must be Leo." As they sat down, the air between them felt uncertain yet strangely comfortable. The cafe was cozy. Warm lights, soft music, and the comforting smell of cinnamon coffee. Leo ordered the cheapest drink on the menu, and Sophie noticed the way he counted the coins in his hand before placing them on the counter. He didn't try to impress her, and that honesty drew her in. "So, what do you do?" she asked. I fix computers. Freelance mostly," he replied, stirring his coffee. "It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I like helping people who can't afford fancy tech guys." Sophie tilted her head, intrigued. There was passion behind his words, a quiet pride. Most men she met bragged about their careers. Leo spoke with humility. He asked about her life too, not just her job, but her hobbies, her dreams. No one had done that in a long time. When she laughed at his dry humor, he seemed surprised, as if he wasn't used to making someone laugh. Time flew by. Hours slipped past unnoticed until the cafe began dimming its lights for closing. As they stood to leave, snow started to fall outside, glittering under the streetlights. Leo noticed her shiver and immediately took off his jacket. "Here, you'll catch a cold." Sophie hesitated but accepted it, warmth spreading through her, not just from the jacket, but from the small gesture. He smiled softly. "I hope this isn't our last coffee." Her heart skipped. "Neither do I." As Leo walked away, she caught herself watching his retreating figure through the snow, unaware that behind his quiet charm and worn jacket hid a secret far greater than she could imagine. A week passed, and Maria's life returned to its familiar rhythm of exhaustion and responsibility. She worked double shifts at the diner, came home to cook simple meals, helped Leo with his homework, and prayed quietly that the bills would somehow balance themselves. The night at the subway lingered in her mind, but she assumed she would never hear about the man she saved again. He was a stranger, after all. Someone from a different world. That evening, the diner buzzed with its usual crowd of late-night regulars and tired workers. Maria moved between tables with her practiced smile, balancing trays and refilling coffee cups. She was wiping down the counter when the door chimed and a tall figure stepped inside. He looked out of place among the worn booths and flickering lights. His tailored suit was immaculate, his shoes polished, and his presence commanding. The chatter dimmed for a moment as eyes turned toward him. But he didn't scan the room for someone important. His gaze went straight to Maria. Her breath caught. It was him, the stranger from the subway. His face, though still pale from recent recovery, carried strength. His eyes softened when they met hers. "You," he said quietly, as if in disbelief. "You're the reason I'm standing here. I don't even know your name." Maria's hand stilled on the cloth she held. She felt suddenly self-conscious in her faded uniform, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She swallowed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maria, just Maria." He repeated her name as though it were something precious. "Maria. I'm Richard Hale." He hesitated, almost testing how much to reveal, but her expression told him she had no idea who he was. For once, it was refreshing. "I owe you my life." Her cheeks flushed. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have done." Richard shook his head. "No." People stood back. "You didn't. That matters." He glanced at the photo taped behind the counter, a smiling boy with big brown eyes. "Is that your son?" Maria nodded cautiously. "Leo. He's 7. From that night forward, Richard became a quiet but steady presence in her world. He visited the diner often, never announcing who he was or drawing attention. Sometimes he asked about her day, sometimes he helped Leo with math problems scribbled on napkins, and sometimes he just sat, listening. It wasn't grand gestures that touched her, it was the way he looked at her as though she mattered, as though her struggles weren't invisible. For a woman who had spent years surviving, Maria began to feel something she hadn't in a long time: seen, valued, and quietly loved. Weeks passed since Sophie learned Leo's true identity, yet her heart still fluttered every time his name lit up her phone. Despite his wealth and power, Leo never acted like a man used to getting everything he wanted. He was attentive, humble, and still preferred little things: street food over fine dining, evening walks over parties, laughter over luxury. But for Sophie, it wasn't easy. The world around them had changed. Rumors spread fast once employees saw the two together. Whispers trailed her in the office hallways: "She's dating the boss. He's probably just playing with her." Sophie tried to ignore it, but the weight of judgment grew heavier each day. Still, Leo remained steadfast. One evening, he showed up outside her apartment in his car, dressed simply, a small smile on his lips. "Rough day?" he asked as she climbed in. "You could say that," she sighed. "Your employees think I'm after your money." Leo glanced at her, his gaze soft but firm. "Then we'll prove them wrong. You and me." He drove her to a quiet spot overlooking the city, the same cafe where they'd first met. It had closed for the night, but he'd arranged with the owner to let them in. The lights glowed warmly, coffee already brewing. "I thought we could start over," he said, pulling out the same chair she'd sat in during their first date. Sophie laughed. "You really remember everything, don't you?" "Every detail," he admitted. "Especially how you looked at me like I was worth something, even when I wasn't wearing a suit." Her heart softened. He reached across the table, taking her hand. "Sophie, I've spent my whole life building walls: money, power, status. But that night with you, it was the first time I felt free. I don't want to hide behind anything anymore." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then stop hiding," she whispered. "Let the world see who you really are." Leo smiled, his fingers brushing hers. "Only if you'll stand beside me." Outside, the snow began to fall again, just like the night they met. And in that quiet cafe, surrounded by memories and warmth, Sophie realized it didn't matter how rich he was, the man she'd fallen for had always been the same humble soul beneath it all. Months passed, and the story of the cafe girl who saved the $200 million deal spread quietly through Baxter Enterprises like wildfire. Some thought it was exaggerated, a modern corporate fairy tale. But those who had witnessed it knew the truth. Emma Walker had become an unexpected force inside the company. Under Marcus's mentorship, she grew rapidly. She learned about market analysis, financial ethics, and negotiation tactics. But what truly set her apart wasn't her growing knowledge, it was her unshakable integrity. While others focused on numbers, Emma focused on people. She noticed details that the analysts overlooked: an intern's hesitation before presenting flawed data, a supplier's subtle change in tone during calls, the human side of business that spreadsheets could never show. Marcus often invited her to strategy sessions, introducing her simply as "my advisor." At first, it shocked the executives. But it didn't take long before they began asking for her opinion. One morning, Baxter Enterprises faced another critical crossroad: a potential partnership with a tech startup that seemed promising on paper. The boardroom buzzed with excitement, but Emma felt that now familiar twinge in her gut, the same one she'd felt that day in the cafe. Something didn't add up. During the presentation, she leaned toward Marcus and whispered, "That's the wrong trick again." He smiled slightly but trusted her intuition. At her suggestion, they asked for deeper transparency into the startup's coding assets and intellectual property. Within hours, their team discovered a hidden clause that would have forced Baxter Enterprises into surrendering ownership of key software rights. The room fell silent when the truth came out. Marcus looked across the table, proud. "Once again, Emma Walker saves the day," he said. After the meeting, he called her into his office. "Do you realize what you've done?" She shrugged modestly. "Just doing my job, sir." He smiled. "No, Emma, you've redefined what that job means." A week later, during the company's annual meeting, Marcus took the stage before hundreds of employees. "Every great company needs leaders who aren't afraid to speak the truth, even when it's inconvenient," he began. "Emma Walker taught me that." He turned to her, eyes warm. "As of today, She's officially joining the leadership team as our youngest strategic advisor." The applause thundered through the hall. Emma blinked back tears, realizing her life had come full circle, all because she'd once dared to tell a millionaire CEO he was doing it wrong.